Now, in studio, we want to have a conversation on matters of women in engineering, specifically women, or rather women in construction. And we want to talk to architects and engineers who are joining me in studio to just discuss why the numbers of women in the construction industry are low, what challenges do they face, and how can that number be increased. And in studio, next to me is architect Brenda Nyawara, the Honorary Secretary at Architectural Association of Kenya. And next to her is Engineer Margaret Ogai, the Registrar at the Engineers Board of Kenya. And to my far left is Engineer Jane Mutilili, the Honorary Secretary at the Association of Consulting Engineers. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Karibu sana. I think I'll start with you, Engineer Ogai. Could you just tell us about the numbers of women in the construction industry?
Well, thank you very much, Betty. I would like to first thank you for having this very important discussion we're having today. We have less than 10% overall women participating in the construction industry. At Engineers Board of Kenya, we have less than 7% of all professional engineers in the country are women engineers. So out of 3,500, we only have about, we have only that 7%, which means there's a big gap in that area. And I think it spreads across to the architects, to the contractors, and generally the numbers still to be are quite low. Thank you very much.
And what is the cause of these low numbers?
Okay, I think it starts right from the day we are born. And I'm sure you know, I think traditionally, this has been a very, construction has been viewed and as a male vocation. So women have not been encouraged from a cultural perspective to participate here. Then again, construction is a lot of science. The STEM subjects here, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Again, just as we go back to how we were brought up and when we went to school, we didn't have technical schools for women. So that gives, I think it already even as you start doing your schooling, there's no encouragement to do STEM subjects. So when we get to university, the numbers are low. Yes, I think so. That has been one of the biggest problems. But we have had very many women still persist and get on with this job. But then I think there are other barriers, which I'm sure my colleagues here will be able to tell you now that you come out and you start working. So when we leave the university, we are still very few. You have no mentors, and you start coming out to the field to practice. So I think it's a myriad of many issues, but it starts right from the pipeline, I think, that the supply line is also too low, and these are things that we are looking at. And then when we get to the leadership side, let me now talk I'll let them talk on the intermediary. At the leadership, again, we don't have enough. We have very few women who are in the boards. On the boards, we come now to the chairpersons, the CEOs, and the director levels. In these fields, we really are going to. You will find that there are very few of us. We've done some statistics; they are really, really, really low. And again, it's the same. It's reflected again in the private sector. Very few consulting engineering firms are led by women. I think we only have 3% in our register at the Engineers Board of Kenya. Thank you.
Right, Architect Nyawara, I would like to hear your voice on this. You're very young. Tell us about your journey and maybe how you got here and your experience as a woman.
Thank you so much, Betty. As an architect by profession, I have seen women come from universities and TVETs, and when they transition to the industry, the numbers start to reduce. And as my colleague has actually mentioned, we do have very few women in the leadership positions. But I can highlight a few achievements because we have seen now in the past couple of years women taking up positions. The Architectural Association actually has a woman president. Also, the Institute of Quantity Surveyors has a woman president. And then we are seeing more women taking up leadership because of their proven advocacy, their practice. And when we have such women now, it encourages more young people to take up these courses and know that they can make it in their practice also.
Right. Engineer Mutilili, tell us your experience as under the Association of Consulting Engineers. What do the numbers look like there?
Oh, that is probably where the numbers are not good at all. The consulting engineers, we have, I think the registered consulting engineers with EBK are 14 or 15 engineers, women engineers. But the ones who are actually with the association, they are not fine. So that we are not doing well. That we are not doing well. Mm-hmm. But we are trying to encourage many more, and at least I know by the end of this year we'll have gotten a few more. Mm-hmm. That's where we are.
Right. As Engineer Ogai said, the problem starts very early on in the lives of women. Yeah. So what is being done at that level to ensure that by the time now we are getting to universities and other tertiary institutions, there are more women in the STEM-related subjects? Right. Let's start with Engineer Ogai.
Oh, thank you. I think we've done a lot as women in construction in our individual ways. Just being a woman in construction or in that field, you're going to get a lot of young ladies who want you to mentor them. Mm-hmm. So at the individual personal capacity, we are doing a lot of mentorship. We also have associations. We have the women in engineering, engineers women engineers chapter at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. It's a very vibrant chapter, and they do a lot of mentorships at high school and even in the universities and for the young graduate engineers. At Engineers Board of Kenya, what we've also done now, which is slightly more formalized, is that we do have a graduate engineers internship program where we take just 100 graduate engineers and we make sure we get, in fact, we've stopped doing slightly more than 1/3. We take up to 40%. And it's becoming very deliberate. We want to be taking 50%, so that we can encourage our young women who are coming into this field to find a space and get the necessary experience that they need to become leaders in this area. At government level, I'd also want to commend that very recently we held a Women in Construction conference. It was very, very successful. It was led by the CS for Roads, Honorable Mukaman, and also the Presidential Advisor, Harriet Chagai, Honorable Harriet Chagai. And we made very, very good deliberations and also resolutions. And one of the things that we got as a promise is that we're going to look at how do we increase the participation, whether it is the tenders. We want to get more women participating, whether it is in appointive positions. We want to make sure. And I think now we're just working out on the roadmap so that we can start seeing ourselves. I think it's always good to be part of the population. When we talk of the face of Kenya, it must also have the feminine side of it. So we want to see that in construction, and I think we now have very good government support, and I think we're going to come up with programs to increase that participation by women in construction. Thank you.
When you even talk about, let's talk about perception, because when you hear the president, when he's launching all these programs, whether it's affordable housing or whatever, the most mention of women is the ones who will be feeding, feeding the construction workers.
Yes.
There's not much about women, taking up these projects. And it sounds like a very cutthroat industry for women especially. So I think let's start with you, Architect Nyawara. How do you go about the competition and ensuring that you're fit and right for the job?
First off, it starts with public awareness. We need the public to know that women are actually consultants also. They are leaders in the industry. They are just as competent, if not more. And we have delivered projects in Kenya that are tangible. And it means that whatever other project coming up, it doesn't have to be only a certain demographic handling it. And I think if the public knows that, then even the practicing consultants have no issue trying to justify that I'm a woman and I can do this. Their work speaks for themselves.
Right. Your work needs to speak for yourself, for itself. Engineer Mutulili, as a consulting engineer and, leading these consulting engineers, how do you ensure that they are packaging themselves in a way that makes them right for the job? And also, while you're commenting on that, also comment on the issue of perception.
Yes, one of the things that I always tell women engineers as we are mentoring them is being a woman is not a qualification by itself. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not a qualification. So you need to do your work well, actually better than most, because you are speaking for the many women who are not within your scope, and many women who want to go there and they don't have the way to get there. Number one. Number two, you also need to do it in such a way that the people who are giving you the job will not have any reservations of giving another woman the job. So the ones who are working, the ones who have the privilege of being in a position to showcase basically what you do, we need to do it better than other people. What are we doing about, you had asked about what was the question? What you're doing about
the young
women.
People. Yeah, the young
Yes.
women now coming into the industry.
The young people. I think I want to recommend and commend our young engineers, both women and men. I think they've quite gone out of their way to mentor. They've gone to schools, they've gone to even universities, and they actually give a lot of hope to our students, especially in the universities. I know they probably have gone to all the universities. Those are the future leaders in ASEC, and also the young engineers, also future leaders in IK. And they've mentored them. What Brenda had said about when the women finish the university, the continuation, I think that's a conversation that we really need to have, because being a woman should also not be disadvantage you from running a home. And you know, you don't run a home, the women run a home. So our employers, our government, and people who run farms, one of the things we do, or we should do, is when you get a young engineer, a young woman engineer, the exposure to the field should actually be the first thing before she gets a family. Because you know, when you get a family, you have your limitations, and they are good limitations. I mean, they are limitations you should have. So if, for example, I have engineers working for me, when I have the men and the women, I would expose the women to the field as early as I am able to. Because there comes a time when they actually need to be back in the office because they have a home to run. And if we cannot do that, especially, that can become almost a government policy. So that it's actually not really an advantage. I mean, what word do I want to use? For the women, it actually should be their right. So that you are able to do what you can when you're able to do that. And when you need to stay at home, then you are also continuing to do your job. Registration comes from what? From the design and from supervision. So supervision should be done when you have the time to do that. Yeah.
Right. Engineer Ogai, I would like to hear your comments about women inevitably being slowed down when they start families, and how they can go about that.
Yes, I think, thank you very much. That is definitely a fact. In fact, I think starting your family is a very big risk to a career of any woman in any field, not just in engineering. But it gets even more tricky for the construction, because under construction there's a lot of trouble. You go to where the sites are. The sites are not in the office. So it gets very, very difficult, and then you find a lot of sites have also not put in facilities for women. Of late now we have seen, yes, we have even quarters and washrooms separate for women, but that never used to be the case. Again, we have seen, unfortunately, a lot of even, sexual harassment and bullying on sites. They say, I mean, you can imagine you're going to a site and there are over 100 or so laborers. And there's always going to be cattle with, it's called cat with yeah, that. And basically bullying you just to see how are you going to do this job. So I think generally, we have a lot of programs that we need to have. First, just sensitization. And I think it is sensitization not to the women because they know themselves. It would be can you hear? Yes, it would be sensitization generally to all our leadership, and that's where we are starting. So that we can have enabling policies for women to start participating, having the confidence, and to continue contributing. Let me say this because we normally will talk about it as though it is we are in an abstract way. The bottom line is, this is an economy. Mm-hmm. Yes? Mm-hmm. We are looking at over 800 billion is used in construction in Kenya. Most of the development budgets in this country are in construction. So when you have only 10% participating, there's something completely wrong. And here we have women are 50% of the population. Again, these facilities that are being designed for them, they are the ones who are going to be using them. If it is a residential house, do you have the perspective of the women, how they would want even the size of the kitchen to be? You know? So I think these are not things that, that we should be embarrassed to talk about. We should be able to bring them out and come up with policies and programs towards that. And I think we are doing, I think the government is, I think the first thing is that, as I said, I think it's a gender mainstreaming and that commitment. And let me say this, for me, I am very, very happy with the government that we now have a presidential advisor on women's rights. Because I think it has been previously taken that you just need to work hard. In fact, I really don't like it when they make it look like it is women who themselves are not putting in the effort that they need to do. We need to be very serious and know that everybody has aspirations, everybody has dreams, and we should find a way to support those. If it is bringing the child, crashes to the offices, let us do those kind of things. And I'll tell you, those are not there right now, but I know there's more sensitization that's going on, and we are going to get there. Maybe I'd like, as I end, I would want to say, yes, we have to appreciate the many roles that women play. They are caregivers at home, and they come to the office and they want to contribute. Can we allow that this woman, if she has to step aside from her job to go and raise her family, that she comes back and doesn't miss to get a job and is able to come back and then start her career? I'll tell you, most of us start blossoming in our careers, not at her age, but about 45 to 50. That is generally for women. And at that time, then you're being told now you're almost about retiring. So I think we need to look at that area and see how we must have this happening. We're going to also take studies from other countries. I think in Malaysia, so it is they're 50-50. I think that's one of the countries that has been very successful in breaking the gender barrier. So I think there are also ways that we need to learn. How are they managing in other countries so we can support women to do what they need to do? And I think the economy needs all of us to contribute our best, our talents. Then I'm sure we'll do very well as a country.
Wow, I like what you said, that it is not that women are not working hard enough. It's just that there are some challenges and barriers, that are, some are systemic, some are societal, that have impeded the success of women in this industry and even generally in careers. Brenda, I have seen you nodding very in agreement with Ogai. Would you like to comment on that or add on to what she said?
Yes, I can add that the women in the industry who are actually doing very well are able to still balance with their own private practice, able to balance advocacy in associations, able to balance family. So there's really no hindrance if the young women out there fear that if they begin focusing on their families, that their careers will have to take a back seat. We are amongst one of the greatest engineers I know, whom I've been able to watch in their career progression, and I can see that it's possible. So any young woman out there knows that there's role models already who they can follow. That they can follow.
Yeah. Engineer Mutulili?
I totally agree with her. And it's actually sad. There's a time we did, in IK, we called out engineers who are between 30 and I think about 45. And many of them couldn't. What we realized is that when we had our Women in Engineers chapter, when we call out, they don't come. And they don't come because we want to have an event in the evening, we want to have, So we actually deliberately got a day event, and we invited specifically that number of people. And many of them I know bounced back. And because they're feeling like, in your office, you have every 2 days of the week you're being called, your baby is sick, that kind of thing. And we were just telling them, first of all, if you have such issues, talk to us. We are in the leadership, we'll help you. If you're having issues with your office, talk to us. Within ourselves, we'll actually find a way of dealing with your office. And I think that quite helped a few people bounce back. And as she said, from about 40, you've settled, you've got your children, they've gotten their line. The first 3 years of monkey years for the babies are over. They're probably in school. You're able now to get back to your career. It is actually not fair that if we start at the same level, you and a man,
you go like this, and then you, at best, you stagnate. At worst, you come down. This guy just goes on, and he has his family, and he's a very good family man. You somehow, and very good in career, you somehow, you have to choose between the two. You should not be made to choose.
It's quite an unfortunate reality, okay?
Yeah.
You have something
Yes,
to add?
I wanted just to add, because I think this might be, I don't know how it will be taken, but it's good to say this. You know, we look at, and it is good to have the nuclear family as we've had it, the setup that we've had. But in reality, I think there was the census that was done recently, and it showed 40% of households in Kenya are headed by women. So she has these multiple roles, and again, she doesn't have a partner who's going to support her in this. So I think we must come to really where the society is. Where are we today? And deal with our issues and design our issues that way. Because we can't, I think once you also affect any section of the society, it even affects those who depend on her. So imagine you're here, you're not able to get a construction work because for whatever reason, maybe it is even just the networking that you're not able to do effectively. It's going to impact even on the poverty levels that we're talking about. If we can't get our girls getting access to education that will lead them to careers where there's a good economy, you can imagine you're going to be left probably to do the caregiving roles even when it comes to formal employment. And they pay less. Engineering pays more than probably some of the other careers, and we know it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So I think we're really saying that these are real issues. We are behind the government efforts 100%, but we want to see concrete decisions being made about since the constitution came in place. I can understand the elective positions has been very difficult to find that formula, and we are very happy to have the county representatives. But let's talk of the appointive. There is nothing that is stopping that we can appoint the 30% that we need. The appointive posts are there, but you go on the ground. The reality is different. We are not quite encouraging the women to take up those positions. So many sectors. I'm sorry. You just go and look at them. You go and Google. Go to the energy sector. Go to the road sector. Go to the water sector, and see the participation of women in appointive posts. I think these are things that we want to collect data on, and then come up with specific programs that we can intervene and therefore get our 50% working, the whole 50% of the population working as hard and contributing as much, and bringing their creativity and their uniqueness into that sector. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think that, or in your experience, when you go seeking a contract or the jobs that you're seeking in the industry, is the award of this job sometimes don't you get the job sometimes just because you're a woman? Do they have to think that, oh, she's a woman, this project is running for 5 years, she might have a baby somewhere in there, all those thoughts that could be going in their minds. Is this something that is affecting women actively?
Can I I'm so sorry to dominate this. Do you know I have been, when I became the registrar and CEO of EBK, I was very surprised that a number of young women called me. One, they were talking about issues of sexual harassment. That's why I keep bringing it up. It's a painful subject, but it is a reality. But we've also, a few also said that she was pregnant and she was disqualified. She went for an interview. It's not a disability. But you go for an interview and somebody says, others say that you're too young, you are going to be disrupting us with now getting families. So these are real things. That quite a number. I think it's much easier, particularly in private sector. In public, we are bounded by the rules of representation. So we always make sure we meet the 30%. But in the private sector, I can tell you somebody outrightly says, I don't want to work with a young lady. Yeah. Because you're soon going to tell me you're getting married or you're going to get pregnant. And they're told in their faces. They're told in their faces.
Please go ahead.
In construction, actually, it's much worse. Because when I talk about construction, I'm not even talking about sites, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but even in our offices, you're imagining you're running a project. And then when you're running this project, in between, you've decided to get pregnant. This project is running for probably 2 years. And the person there is just looking and wondering, you've come in, you're probably pregnant. In 6 months, I have to get somebody to do that job. that's a reality for, you know, when you're in business, those are the things you need to look at. But there must be a way, especially nowadays, now that people can work from home. After those 3 months, you can actually still continue and work from home. So it's actually, yeah, it's a reality. I want to talk about the 30% she talked about, the 30% gender rule. And I said it when we had the Women in Construction conference. Number one, you know, when you're talking about the 30%, if you look at it, it is actually a pyramid, very fat in the bottom, in most institutions. So you find there are very many women below here. Up there, they come thin. At some point, they actually stop altogether. But if you do the statistics of an institution, we really do have 30% of women. And that's what I'm saying. That is what must deliberately stop, number one. Number two, we have, and I really do thank the government, this gender 30%, at least when they're doing the contracts, now I'm talking within the construction, when they're doing contracts, Kura and Kenya did some tenders last week. And within those ones, they gave women their contracts specifically for women, for the PWDs and youth, and then others you can bid in all of them, which is very good. What has happened after the 2010 constitution? Many construction firms turned and became women-owned. So you and your husband used to own a construction firm and you had 1%. When the gender came, then you were given the 51%, but nothing else changed. Oh. So you have these firms that are actually, in quotes, women-based, but they're actually men-based, so to speak. I know some institutions have gone ahead to say, the account that you're giving us, you are supposed to give your account there. The account that you're giving us, the woman, director, has to be a signatory. Because they've realized you are actually just there by name. You don't run the accounts, you don't know what is going on in the account. Now, the ones who are being proactive have actually decided that they want the account and they'll pay into the account where the woman is a signatory. So those are some of the active, proactive things that the government is actually doing, or some institutions are doing. The other thing is bundling projects. You find that they've put projects together. That is not just actually for the women. It's even for the country. I mean, Build Kenya. What was it?
Buy Kenya Build.
Yeah. So they put a project and they bundle it so much together such that they put 5 projects together, and out of those 5 projects, the cost of that project, not a single contractor in Kenya is able to do that. And those projects are completely disjointed. So you're doing a siwa in Kayole, you're doing a siwa in Dandora, you're doing a siwa in Kibera, you're doing a siwa in Muranga, and they've been put in one project. And therefore, the only people who can do that project is actually an international consultant. When that happens, then you kick out, not just the women. Of course, you kick out the women the first time, but you kick out now all the Kenyan contractors. That is the other thing that must stop. We must disbundle these projects so that everybody is able to get something.
Wow, well, we'll discuss more on that in just a bit. Brenda, I saw you when she was talking about the family issues. Yeah, you were in agreement. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. I think also I would advocate for women not to allow themselves to just fall into societal norms, because when we have a notion that if I start a family then I cannot practice, then it gets into your mind, and that affects your practice, affects your future career progression, because we have, once again, we have role models who have done both. And then we also have bodies that advocate and support the women in practice. We also have families and their other things that they're doing in their lives. We have women in real estate, women in construction, women engineers chapter, all that. They have webinars, seminars, they have publications, mentorship programs that allow you to actually meet people who are doing the same things you're doing. So you don't have to stay in the notion of, if I start my career this way, then I have to continue and not include my family, or not also go into like advocacy or further study. You can actually balance it together. Yes. Balancing it together.
Ladies, I'd like to get your thoughts on streamlining the engineering sector, because of course it has not been without its challenges. Yeah, we have seen a number of buildings collapsing, Yeah, some projects you find a bridge after 2 days of launching, it has collapsed. So what is the role of women in ensuring that these challenges are tackled and tackled well? Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that question. One, because I'm a regulator, and it is very disheartening. Actually, it breaks the hearts of professionals in this country, and I think the leadership. Everybody in society gets affected. When a building comes down, you lose a breadwinner, you maim a child, and you lose that investment. So the losses are never worth it. I think this is part of why there's a big push by government now on issues to do with governance, because I think it starts and ends with governance. We have very robust laws in this country, but they are not being respected. They are shortcuts we're taking for whatever reason. At the Engineers Board, what we do to prevent this, we have taken a very proactive approach. We are now looking to get all the information on all the buildings there are, and we want to be mapping them on a risk-based, and we prevent. For instance, what is happening is a number of the projects you're supposed to be supervised by a professional engineer, but that is not actually happening. We are having cases where non-engineers are supervising these projects. So we've got that data, and we are now taking a very. What we do is that if the engineer himself or herself did not follow the right laid down procedures and set guidelines, we have a disciplinary mechanism, and we have done quite a number of cases. We have one engineer under suspension through that process, but more so we also then take those who are not. I think I'd like to emphasize at this point, if you're not an engineer or you're not an architect, it is actually a criminal offense, because we have laws for you to be undertaking work that you do not have the capability or you are not licensed to do. And I think that is what has happened. The players in the field have ignored these laws. So you find a number of times they're not getting approvals from the county governments, they're not getting the projects registered at the National Construction Authority, or they're not using the professionals that they need. So I think there's a lot that we need to do as a country, introspect, and I know if we want to, and I know that there's a lot of government commitment right now, and we are leading in that space. We have a multi-sectoral committee in place, so that we can exchange information between ourselves and other regulators. And I think I'd like to just give that I think this will be a thing of the past. It's soon going to come to an end, and I think we're all very conscious, and it's just in bad taste. Here we are like looking for foreign investors who's going to come and invest or buy property which they think is going to crack. So I think there's a lot of focus now to do things right, as we should be doing.
Very important, doing things right as it should be done. Now we are just winding up our conversation here on women in construction. Specifically, we've been talking to engineers and an architect. Ladies, I would like to get maybe your closing remarks on this conversation. We don't have much time, so Mutulili, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether this should be my closing remark. I just wanted to respond to what you had asked about collapsing building.
Okay.
A lot of times engineers, architects, QSs are blamed for that because we are the professionals in that. But for me, the blame should go to the developer. And I've been looking for a forum to say this. Thank you very much for giving it to me. Because you are putting up a building, a 3, 4, 5-story building, and you do not have the money for it to be done properly. You do not have the money to pay an engineer, an architect for that building to be done properly. Unfortunately, what happens when that building collapses, I've not had a building that has collapsed and killed the owner. It is the Wanjiku who dies on that building. We should have a law, and we have it. It should just be, somebody was talking about naming and shaming. Those buildings that are coming up, be more than one building, this is the work of NCA. They should make sure that the professionals who are named when those buildings were being submitted are actually supervising that building. And that onus is on the owner. The owner should make sure, and I'm actually appealing to them, when your building comes down, the money you are trying to save not to pay professionals, all of it goes to waste. You don't know how many lives you have killed. So the people who are doing the development, there are professionals in this country, there are professionals whose work is the only work they do is actually that. Just the way that you'll not be told that I had this person is a doctor, and then you go to them. You actually verify that they are doctors. We have our regulators. We have regulators in Borax. We have VBK. They are regulators whose work is to make sure that the person who's supervising your work, the person who has drawn your work, is actually registered and qualified to do that. So my final remark, if I had anything to say, is please, for those who are developing, for those who are building, get the right people to build for you. If you do not know, look for Engineers Board of Kenya, look for Borax, find out from there. You can Google, you can ask anyone. When somebody tells you they're an engineer, make sure that they are qualified engineers to do your work.
Very important.
It pains me so much. I'm in construction industry. It pains so much when you see a building coming down and you know that the person who was actually building that is the same person who built the other one.
Okay.
I mean, really.
Right. Ladies, 30 seconds for the two of you. Kindly, your closing remarks.
So I think first I'd really like to thank you, Betty, for this forum. Just to say that I think I'll talk about data. We need to collect statistics because what gets measured gets done. So that's a challenge that we're taking up as regulators. I am already, I think, in the process of picking up that data. And then we want to also map our women where they are, women in construction, where are they working? And then we can come up with specific measures to support them. But just to say, I think there's, let me put it positively, I think there's a space and a business case for having women participating fully in construction. And we are not going to be losing anything because we are going to just co-create. I think once you have everybody participating in the economy effectively, the economy grows and the cake gets bigger.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Brenda?
Thank you. Apart from making sure you have registered professionals, make sure you abide by the building code and county regulations, but also know that the women professionals are just as competent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. I really wish we had more time to continue this. Asanteni sana. Well, that is all we had for you on BizCheck. My name is Betty Kiptum. I have been speaking with Engineer Margaret Ogai, the Registrar at the Engineers Board of Kenya, Engineer Jane Mutulili, the Secretary at Association of Consulting Engineers, as well as Architect Brenda Nyawara, the Secretary at Architectural Association of Kenya. We thank you for your valued company. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Bye-bye.